you came in are the things that are important. I think everybody here knows where the toilets are, and we all now know where the cup of tea is since we've had it, and special thanks to Alistair for pizzas galore. That worked really well. So that's what we're looking to start off with. And we've got a new member here for his first time tonight. Nadesh, welcome. It's really great to see another young member. Going to take Jono on. There's a We have a young members trophy that we give out at the end of each year, and Jono, just in front of you here, has been nailing it forever. We've got a few other young members, so really I hope that we're going to encourage you as much as we can to knock him viciously off his pedestal. Okay, as I said, this is a celebration of last year, and Nelson's going to run a really interesting program where we look and reflect, and anybody who has gained an award last year now gets the opportunity to sort of talk about their picture. Quite often, and the situation happens, we do talk about these sometimes on our individual competitions, but quite often in the end of year, the awards go to different images than necessarily the ones that got honours and best in shows and all that sort of stuff. So it's a great opportunity to really get to see a bit broader. Other things that are happening tonight, PI number 1 is you need your entry in tonight. If you haven't got it in now, make sure you get it in when you get home. And PR number 1 is next week. And the MDC also needs to be in on the last day of the month. But because we haven't got an MDC to kick it off, we've got a title already. So if you're ready with your pens, you're going to write down for MDC for February. The title is Nothing to See. So Nothing to See is the challenge for next month. Okay, a couple other things notice-wise that I want to talk about before we move on. We need some more help, basically. The program is pretty full and there's lots of things to do, and we've had a couple of issues with a couple of slots and things, so I'm really kind of desperate for some help. We need projected image secretaries. We'd want to have 2 secretaries, the way the print really runs really well with Janine and Di, so what I want to do the same with the projected image. So basically I'm going to read through a list of kind of jobs we're looking for here, and I'd like you all to say which one of those would I like to do, not how can I get out of that. So I really, and I'd love to hear from anybody who's interested. So if you're interested in a PI secretary, as I said, we want 2 of them, and we're going to amply support them and get things up and running. So that's what we're looking for. We also need a team of 3 to run the Laurie Thomas Winter School. We've got some preliminary work that's been done and stuff is underway, but I just need, again, a team of 2 or 3 to pick it up. Heidi's done this by herself over the last couple of years, and I think any time we have one person doing things, it's just harder. So I'm looking for a couple of 2 or 3 people who are keen to say, hey, I'd love to be involved in that, and move that forward. And the other one is the Laurie Thomas Landscape Salon. Same deal. We've had people working on this over the last couple of years, and Dennis has picked up quite a lot of expertise, so he's essentially going to run things, but we need some helpers for the salon. And the salon is what funds the winter school, so we actually need to put the work in to get that done. And we need people for the committee. The reason we need some of these people is that it's John Ben's last night at CPS tonight, and Christchurch at CPS. Unfortunately, he's kind of got a job up in the North Island, which is a bit of a pity. So sorry to see you go, John. We're looking forward to seeing your work staying here, and it's been great having you here. And once again, see you at convention and whenever you're down. Right. A couple of things, just I want to briefly outline what we're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks. So next week, the 7 o'clock session used to be called C grade. We've now got slightly more PC, and we're calling it beginners and new members. Same thing. Anybody who's interested in sort of, interesting ideas that are the more junior scale of things is what we're looking for. I'll talk about what Heidi's got in mind for that shortly. But the week after, we're going to be talking about competitions for the 2024 program. I'll be sending an email out in the next week or so with a few thoughts, basically, that come from the committee. And we're using a fancy term calling rebalancing things. We're just having to shift things around because of a number of reasons. So be open to that. Read the email that'll come out in the next week and come along in a couple of weeks to hear what we're doing with competitions. And basically that's the numbers and the way the systems works and all that sort of thing. The third thing I want to talk about, at the convention, at the AGM last year, we agreed that we're going to try and spend some money. So the first thing we're spending some money on is the Shelley Harvey workshop. And so we've had applications out for that, and basically it's full. So if you didn't put your name down by now, sorry, it's too late. You'll have to look for the next one. And if you have put your name down, you're in. So that we got the perfect numbers that we were hoping for, and that's going to work really well. So if you have applied to do the Shelley Harvey workshop, you can expect an email from Anna in the next 2 or 3 days with a bit of an outline of how the thing's going to work and what you'll be expected to do. You will then have to pay for it, so please follow that up as quickly as we can. The other thing that we need at the Shelley Harvey workshop is, and there may be some people who are unable to go to the whole thing, or didn't want to, decided it was they'd rather spend their money on a new lens or whatever it was. But we can't come for the whole thing. We do need some helpers on a couple of the days. So if you're interested in going along for the Friday night or the Saturday or the Sunday, Anna needs some helpers. Just let me know. I can pass that on to her, and she's happy to organise that. Right, that's me done talking for the meantime. I'm going to now hand over to Nelson to run the rest of tonight's program. Thanks. Nelson.
Thank you, Ian. What we have tonight is just some of the individual images that won cups on final night. Omitted, but not diminished, are the many members who won aggregate awards, but we don't have this mechanism to show a whole lot of awards from that. Tonight's show is only a selection of the award-winning images. There were 25 awards given out to 18 members for the best print in landscape, C-grade, whatever. Of those 18 members, 13 are able to speak tonight and present tonight. So you're only seeing a selection of the award-winning images from last year. There will be a big variation in that some speakers have provided lots of images as backup to their winning images to tell the story, and others will just speak about the image that won the award. It's an opportunity for the winners to have a few minutes of fame, and both those approaches are perfectly fine. 2 winners are unable to be here tonight, and they provided some information which will be read out by Ian later in the program. I shall introduce each speaker, showing on screen a copy of the certificates that they won, and they will tell you what the award, the certificates, the information on the screen will tell you what the award was for, who won it, and the title of the print. You can signal to me, I don't think I need to read all that out because it's going to be pretty big. But if you want me to read it out, then just holler, okay? For the speakers, to make things go smoothly, just say next to Alistair, the projectionist, and he'll move on to the next slide. Okay? Just say next. Okay. It's something of a variety show. I'm sure you will enjoy it, and I'll have the first slide next. Okay, like I said, can you all read that? And this is a prompt for the speakers to come up. You can show the next slide as well, because there are 2 certificates awarded to this wonderful woman. One, Diana. Sorry, Joe.
It's been a while since I've held this. Evening, everyone. So tonight, as always, there's a highlight from the end of the year last year, and where the images were viewed and authors are presented with awards and certificates at that last meeting. So next, here I am with Diana Andrews, our patron, and Ian Walls, who spoke previously, receiving the Champion Altered Reality Projected Image Award, along with my name engraved on this prestigious award here, going back to 1998, are the names of previous recipients, and it's a privilege to be accompanying those fine artists. So one of the best things about picking up one of these awards is that you're in great company. And so to name a few other names that are on there, you longer standing members will remember Ron Willems, Peter Curtis, John Thornton, Annette Preen, Les Armon, Rachel Carroll, and John Hawkins. So it's available to any one of us. Next. So a walk in the park. Mum and I were walking at McLaren Park, Tauranga, one calm and sunny autumn day. We came across this tree that really caught our eye. Mum sat patiently in her wheelchair while I walked around this tree and studied how to best make a photograph to do this justice. Next. I wanted to make a painterly image that magically held all these beautiful opposing and complementary colours together. This image was taken with a slow shutter speed of a 30th, f5.6 and ISO 200, on a wide-ish lens, 2.8. So keeping the tree trunk steady, I twisted my wrist a couple of times as the shutter was open, and that's designed to paint or the colour. So you can see here, this line and this line are the same line, but I've just moved the camera a bit like that. Next. The same technique from a different position. Next. And you can see in this one, the circular movement just here. And so instead of just doing this with the camera, I've actually turned it on that central axis. Each of these 3 images has a bright white sky you see up on the left there, and I didn't want that. So next, I worked with combining various opacities with these in layers in Photoshop, and used the first image, which had a leafy coverage on the top edge, to blend with the foliage around the tree. Here is the critique made by assessor, Ian Walls, our esteemed in-house judge. He said, "This beautiful image is a fantastic example of the Pet Ventosa effect. It is a multiple exposure image of a tree created by walking around the tree and viewing it from different points of view, all merged into one. A strong component of why this image works so well is the colour. We are presented with the complementary colours of red and green, as well as gold and green. To add to this, red and gold sit perfectly together in an analogous pair. The form of the image also works well with crop ratio fitting the shape of the tree. Well done with a highly accepted result." So for you new members, Ian mentioned this before, that if you pick up an award during the year like this image did as a highly accepted, at the end of the year, any of your images that get an award, accepted and above, goes into another selection at the end of the year. And so it's always such a really amazing surprise at the end of the year that an image that got a lesser award picks up the champion award at the end of the year. So that, just to let you know how that kind of works. Although that might change if we're doing changes. No, we're not changing that, all right. Okay, so that's how that one was created. So next. So this next one is called, called Winter Glow, and it received the Joan Swanson Trophy for the champion colour projected image. So again, wonderful lineup of talented photographers, and again, that's our patron on your left, Diana Andrews, who's here in the room tonight, and me and Ian on your right. So the other people, to name a few, Neil Grenfell picked up this award in 1999, and recently Jeff Trotter in 2017. Then there was JK, Ron Willems, Nelson, you've had this award as well, and the well-remembered Bevan Tulett in 2022. So again, it's wonderful to pick up an award, to have your name alongside others who have done such beautiful work in the past. Next. So we were driving past Twizel on the way to the winter school, July last year. It was a clear, calm day as we drove down past the Waipiro Arm opposite the Callan Ponds. Who knows where that is? Yeah, and a lot of you have probably seen this scene. The burnt orange of the winter willows and the bright white of the silver birch trees growing together on the far side caught my attention. We turned around, it often happens, like, stop the truck, stop, stop. Turned around and went back and drove off-road a bit to find the best vantage point. This one is with a long lens at 400 millimeters. Next. So on a closer look, the reflections were glowing in the lake and extending the shapes and creating a harmonious symmetry. The long lens then was closer. Next. I moved along the lake's edge to find a better composition. So if you've got time, time is always on your side if you know what you're looking for. I knew I wanted the gold and the silver, but the original one was too big. This gets in closer and gives me what I was looking for. And I was looking for clusters of similar views that, and they were available to find. This one was even closer than the others. I zoomed in to allow only the essence of what I wanted in the final image to be recorded. A long lens at 83 millimeters. To create the glow, I made 2 exposures in camera. One focused and sharp, the other a long exposure, moving the camera slightly up the trees, commonly known as ICM, or in-camera movement. You just do this with your camera. And it doesn't always work out the very first time. I made a few with this method until I was happy with the overlay. Next. And there's the final edit. I worked on contrast, pushing the lights and the darks, and keeping the ethereal glow that I was after. I cropped it into a square as I wanted to eliminate anything that wasn't important in the narrative. Here's the review made by John Jones Parry, the judge or the assessor on this particular group of images. He said, "A lovely image which allows the mind and eye to interact and travel. In my opinion, a piece of art." So that's the explanation to that one. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joe. The next speaker will be Caroline Alcock. And you can see she's won a Natural History Cup. Yep.
Photographing natural history section, you're not allowed to do much in the way of editing, just dodging and burning. So I thought I'd give you some background on how I came about my image. I went to the Styx Mill Reserve looking for a shining cuckoo and found a very busy kingfisher. At first I only saw him or her in a distance. I read that the females were slightly greener and duller, but I still couldn't tell the difference from them. Next. Then there was a little closer, very carefully watching me or any likely prey. Next. And this was one of the more gruesome catches I saw him with. I think this might be a small bird, maybe a baby fantail. Next. Dragonflies. Next. Bees and flies. Next. And this is him feeding the chicks in the hole in the tree that I was watching him, and he went there regularly. Note the membrane across the eye. That's to protect the eye from sharp little beaks. Next. Very hungry mouth, ready for the offering. Next. These transfers happened really quickly, and I guess it was less than a second that they were at the nest, and maybe so they keep the nest secret and other people don't find them. Next. Oh, he's just disappearing, and you can just see the chick taking the food there. Next. So you ever wondered where all this went? All that food going in? I never knew, and then they showed me. Next. And some more. And that happened very, very quickly. And I think you could probably tell later on as the chicks got older, there was a lot of mess down the trunk of the tree. Next. And then the 4 fledglings were ready to take off. 1, next, 2, next, 3, next. And this is sorry, I must have miscounted there. So this is the winning image. That's a little grass skink that that's a branch on that tree you saw that's been cut. And he sat there and waved it one way, waved it the other way, waved it back again, making sure I'd seen him. And I had my settings right. And if anyone's interested, the settings were, it was taken with a Canon R6 with a 100 to 500mm lens, ISO 4000, f8, and a shutter speed of 2500. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. I'll talk to you afterwards about the location of that tree. The next speaker will be Dawn Kirk, please. You can read out the title if you want to.
So, Beauty in Silhouette. The club organised a workshop with Shah Divine, and so I went along with a few other members. This was taken with, it's not there, is it? An ISO of 100, 60 millimetres, f11 and 1/200th of a second. So definition of a silhouette, a solid dark image of a subject against a brighter background, usually shows the subject in profile. The first silhouettes originated in the 1850s in France as a cheaper alternative to having a portrait painted. This was taken using manual mode with studio lighting, but you can just go out and shoot against a sunrise or sunset when the sun is above the horizon, just to get that silhouette. You can do it on using auto, but you need to expose for the brighter background. You'd like a small aperture because a silhouette looks better with a crisp outline, and post-processing just really increased the contrast for drama, and This image I just didn't make really dark. I loved the detail on the model's eye, just seeing her eyelash there. And so I lightened it up a wee bit just to see the detail across her chest, and the light just falls nicely on her face. She was turned around facing a window with a softbox behind her. So she had a bright earring as well, or she's got a bright earring, but I darkened that down a bit because I thought it might appear distracting, and I wanted the focus to be on her face. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Our next speaker will be Alistair.
Hi, welcome back for a new year. This image, well, my image got me the portrait cup for last year, so I was absolutely wrapped. When you travel, you have many choices of getting around the country. It'll depend on a lot of things such as time, distance, expense, comfort, and reasons for being in that country, i.e. business, pleasure, or adventure. When I've travelled, expense has been the main factor which pretty much dictates all the others. The country I've found most rewarding as a backpacker with a Lonely Planet guide and book in one hand and a camera in the other has been India. And the most enjoyable means of getting around the huge country is by train. Next. The railway network in India spans some 67,000 kilometres and carries 23 million passengers a day. Next. As a keen photographer, particularly of people, it was a great way to interact and get some awesome images. This is in our newest members part of the country, down in South India, right down the very tip, basically, of India. Next. Other countries I travelled in by train with equally good experiences were Burma, or as it's called today, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka. This is a particularly special trip from the capital Myanmar to Bagan, which is an overnight journey, and I call it the bouncy train because when it picks up speed, it rocks from side to side and bounces up and down, and you're almost airborne. So it's pretty neat. And then, like halfway through the night, the carriage is actually the coupling broke, and so we saw the carriage disappear into the distance in a cloud of sparks. But 5 minutes later we were away again, so I don't know what they did. They just reattached with a bit of binder twine or something, I don't know, but yeah, it was all good. So there's Burma or Myanmar, and Sri Lanka is another good place for train travel. As well as the people, the landscapes were just as impressive, with jungle and desert, tea plantations and paddy fields. Next. This is on my first trip in India back in 2013 on a train travelling to Varanasi, which is one of the most holy cities in India. Next. Next. This is travelling up in the hill country of Sri Lanka. So you've got hills covered in tea plantations, and it's great. Next. Next. Health and safety is unheard of in a lot of these countries, but yeah. Next. My image entitled "On the Train to Varanasi" was taken on my first trip back in 2013. I was just starting out on a 6 months into the unknown. Waiting at Kargapur station for a train to Varanasi, I took this image of the sky out of the train window, leaning out of the train window. Next. It was taken with my Sony RX100 at 1/20th of a second, f4 with an ISO of 100, shooting JPG. I just used basic stuff in post-processing, contrast, sharpness, and a wee bit of saturation. And all the composition was done in camera. Thank you.
Thank you, Alistair. I used to travel a bit, but not extensively as Alistair does, and in fact my wheelie bins go out more often than I do now. The next speaker will be Diane Kelsey, please.
I have to apologise in advance. I didn't think I was going to get here, so I didn't do much preparation. I did no preparation for this, I'm afraid. This image, I think, got 3, was it, certificates?
If you'd roll through the next slide, you can see
next,
she got a second award and a third.
And a third for this one. And then next, show the image. I've talked about it before a couple of times. There isn't much to this image. It's basically the a house in Redcliffs that I drive past, and I'm always watching light as I drive around. I have a little notebook in the car, 3:30, sunny, on the right, on the corner of things that catch my eye, if I haven't got a camera with me. So I actually specifically went back to shoot this building. So basically the background, the windows, that's just one image, which I cleaned up, spots and dots and things on the white. And then the post, which does cause a bit of controversy, and I think I might redo it, and swap the shadow around to make it look more authentic. But I actually like it like that for me, personally. The post, I just searched around for a newly painted one or a brand new post, because most of them are a bit tatty. Again, took a photo of it and stuck it in there. And then I created the shadow from the post. And then moved it around, but I actually liked it there, even though the light is coming from different directions, as the judge pointed out, that it messed with his mind. That was one of the comments I had during the year, and that's basically it. So if you're out and about and you see something you like, I always just take a note of where it is and the time of day, and whether it's summer or winter, depending on whether the sun's high or low. And the editing, I try and keep quite simple. And it's really important to look for your dust spots and any bird droppings or anything like that. So clean your image up, blow it up to 200%, and just trawl backwards and forwards across your images really slowly, looking for anything. So it's a nice clean image, which is basically what, urban minimalism is about. A nice, not too detailed image, 1 or 2 components. Sometimes I try and get 3, like 2 windows and a post, or you could say the windows, a post, and the shadow, just so that you've got some sort of balance within the image, and it's very much less is more. So just look for the simple stuff. It's everywhere. When I was in Perth, all the buildings were high, so I spent most of my time looking up to the sky. I've had to readjust to sort of knee height in Christchurch, but they're still there, and my confidence is growing as I wander around now. I'm actually seeing a lot more than I did for the first 12 months. So you've got, there's a huge source of items out there that you can make urban minimalist images out of. If you go onto Instagram, there's heaps out there. It's got a big following around the world. And you'll see lots of this type of image. And yeah, it might get inspiration from that. So Instagram's the place to look. Anyway, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Diana. Is Heidi here? I don't think she is. Okay, next, right, hang on. Yeah, Heidi won the Hammond Cup for Champion B grade print. She's unable to be here with us tonight. Something came up at about 6 p.m. tonight. Could we show, we'll show her the winning, we will now show the slide that won that cup next. And there it is looking down. The next speaker will be John Ben, please.
Good evening, everybody. I was equally surprised to get the award, and I didn't keep any images to back up how I created this. Next, it's actually in the middle of last year. I looked at the metadata, and it was in June, 3rd of June last year. It's so winter time, middle of the year. It's actually in Mount Maunganui on the beach, and I was experimenting with some ICM. So I was on the beach at Mount Maunganui, and I'd trying different settings, and I'm shaking my camera around and doing all this sort of thing. And quite a few people came up to me and said, I don't think that's how you're supposed to do it, mate. So you've got to, when you do ICM in public, you've got to be quite thick-skinned and just put up with some of the nonsense that goes on. However, I had a bit of an inkling or an image in my mind's eye of what I wanted to create. And so to the left of the frame, you've got Mount Maunganui, and to the right, you've got the beach and the ocean off into this space. It was late in the day. It was about 6:30 in the evening, so the sun was going quite low down by then, in the middle of the year, and yeah, there's quite a lot of people hanging around. It was quite a nice evening, so I just played away and shook the camera at the scene and probably got about 100 or more images, and got them home, pulled them into Lightroom, had a play, had a look at a few, and thought, oh yeah, there's a couple of things in here that I can probably pull together. So this is a composite, basically. So I would have picked maybe 3 or 4 of those ICM images. I then export them to Photoshop as layers, and then you play around with them and you align them up as best you can. You then kind of apply different blend modes to the image, and different layers can have different blend modes, and you're really just trying to balance off the light and the dark areas. You can use graduated filters as well on certain layers. So at the very top, for example, where you've got the cloud there, a graduated filter would have been applied to kind of like take off some of those blend modes, because depending on the blend mode you use, like you can get quite very, very dark images, and you have to kind of recover them after that. So it started to form something similar to what was in my mind's eye. So I was quite pleased with it, and I just stuck it into an open competition, and always equally surprised when things do well. The judge that back in July, actually, so it was pretty hot off the press when I entered it into the competition. It was Irene Callahan, and she said, if I do this, an image of contrast which conveys to me the feeling of moving from darkness into the light, with the promise of a new day or dawn. I like the softness of the movement conveys and the way the light reflects off the cloud above. I feel it hits a sweet spot between light and movement. So actually, when you look at this close up, you can, in the right-hand section, you can actually see elements of the waves crashing that are coming in. And there's quite a lot of detail in there when you get close, but I think the overall image I was very pleased with, and it's spurred me on to try some more abstract ICM type images and improve my Photoshop skills and blend mode skills. So don't be afraid to shake your camera around in public. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. The next speaker will be Janine Money.
Hi everybody. Next please. Oh, yeah, this actually won 2 trophies. So, this is taken up in the Canterbury High Country. It was the middle of winter 2 years ago. I was hoping for a perfect sunrise. It was dark when I got up there, but as you can see there were absolutely no clouds, so there was no real sunrise. But the reflections were beautiful. The ice in the lake was lovely, and I liked the shape of the tussocks sort of pointing towards the water. As you can see, there's a very large dust spot in that top right-hand corner. So next, please. So this is the final image. To get from that first one to that one didn't take a lot. I put it into Photoshop, adjusted the contrast with some layers, some curves. The whole thing was quite magenta, which looked okay in the sky but not so good in the grasses, so I just toned that down a bit, and I enhanced the browny colour in the tussocks, and I cropped it fairly aggressively into a panorama to sort of enhance the shape of the lake and get rid of all that sky that was very empty. So I've been back to that spot twice, last winter and the winter before that. 2 years ago, there'd been a lot of rain and the water had spilled completely over the edges and it wasn't worth photographing at all. And last year I went there and it was completely empty. So it was really just luck that I managed to strike that when I did. But yeah, I was very surprised to win something for that, but very happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. The next speaker will be John McCall.
Good evening. My image was taken down southwestern on the pure salt week we had at Dusky Sound. This was organised by CPS. On board the Flightless, which was a converted inshore naval protection vessel. We were down there on the 26th of June last year. The most picturesque area in New Zealand, I think. So wherever your head was turned, you got another exciting photo opportunity. I took many beautiful photographs of many aspects of the Dusky Sounds area, but my favourite was Morning Mist, which I entered in the Open Print number 4 competition. My reason for choosing this image for this competition was, next, a stunning view involving different green scenery, which contrasted well with the low cloud and tidal beachfront. The sun was absent at the time, which made for a very natural fjord light. The shadows in the water added to the overall effect of the image, as did the shimmer on the water. The photograph was taken at 10:41 AM using f8 and 1/60th of a second. I used a wide-angle zoom lens projected at 8mm. As you can see from the two images, number one, the original, and this one here was the final image, I used Lightroom to crop to about half the original size and with a little straightening. Also with Lightroom I altered the histogram as such. The exposure to minus 84, highlights to minus 100, shadows to plus 94, whites to plus 42, needed a bit of brightening, clarity to plus 14, and haze plus 17. I used a Sony RX camera with a lens at wide angle. Many thanks to Mike White for organising such a wonderful Fjorden trip for members of our club, and I am sure other worthwhile and award images were taken that week by many on board. Also my thanks to Diana for helping me on the way on my journey in this photography, and taking me to many places I would otherwise not have gone. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is also John. John Thornton, please.
Good evening, everybody. Well, Happy New Year. Danzies Pass Cliff. Next, please. Just in case you don't know where Danzies Pass is, it's inland from Oamaru between Duntroon and Naseby, where you can go curling and all that sort of wintry stuff. On Google Maps it says it takes 2 hours. To a photographer it takes 4 hours, and it's 72 kilometres long. Next. Oh yeah, I've been through this Danzies Pass 3 times. First time was on a motorbike when I was about 20. We didn't look at the weather then. The second time, this was taken January 2017. So the weathers of the next 2 trips have been quite spectacular. I don't know whether it's a Danzies Pass thing or I just got lucky. Next. This is the... Hang on, do we have an audio visual? Yeah. This is the January trip. That was the result of that black cloud just heard. So as you can see, the road looks really good. You know, it's not a difficult road really, but that was the 4th of January, so the weather can be kind of spectacular. This is the last trip. This is when the photos were taken. This is just an introduction. As you can see, the clouds getting a bit overcast there. Next. This was about 11 a.m. too. Yeah, and it started getting really good. Next, that one's done all right in a few competitions. This is the actual cliffs. This is the image I thought was the best one, but it never did any good in competitions. So one of the reasons the judge said it isn't any good was that rough bit on the left. So I went back to my original files, next, and found this one. I tend to expose for the highlights, so it looks pretty dark there. It's an old slide photographer's trick. Mind you, this wouldn't be any good as a slide either. So, yeah, I threw it into... oh, by the way, while I was going through the Danzies Pass, because the light was changing really quick and there was different scenes to take, I didn't worry about tripods and all that sort of stuff. I just... With image stabilisation these days and modern cameras, you can handhold or just take a lot of photos and delete the blurry ones. So what I did, I went back, found this one, chopped a bit off the bottom, chopped a bit off above that white cloud, so chopped out 2/3 of the sky. Of course I lightened it and did all the usual contrasts and sharpening tricks, I guess. Next please. And this is the winning image. Well, yeah. So I'm quite pleased the way it came out. The judge did mention something about a pylon, which I didn't even notice, sticking up above here, but it might have been why I thought the first one was the best one. But no, I quite like this anyway, and it's kind of flows along, and I think that white cloud sort of helps. Oh, well, a few details about it, just in case you want to know. It was taken on f/16, probably aperture priority, at 800ths of a second, so it's nice and sharp. ISO 200, always use it, have the camera 0.7 underexposed. And the white balance was on cloudy, and I was just shooting JPEGs that day. Thanks very much.
Thank you, John. The next two images are for people who are unable to be here, and Ian will address those, so it's over to Ian.
Okay, the first one's Kelly's, and Kelly and Brian are up north at the moment. I rang Kelly just before to make sure I had the right details, and she said they're in Kaitaia and they're on their way to Auckland. They'll be camped just outside Auckland tonight because Brian has to go to work in the morning, so I'm delighted to hear that he's working anyway. Kelly was really chuffed to receive the PT Digital Trophy for the Champion Altered Reality print, and it's for an image called Counting Sheep. If we go next, I'll show you. So this is her image, and this is what Kelly had to say. She sent me a text with the details on it. Counting sheep, taken early on a foggy morning in the Hekateri Valley, just behind Lake Heron. She says that Brian tries to claim this as his photo, I think after she won the award, because as Brian claims, he stopped the car and said, "Get out quickly and take photos." So I'm not sure that that's quite enough justification to claim the award, but yeah, well, that's how it is with them, I guess. Anyway, Kelly goes on to say she saw the sheep moving and she wanted to blur the movement of the sheep, but still see that they are sheep. She loves the flow and colour and tone in the image, and the best part is that you are not entirely sure what you are looking at until you find the sheep's faces in the image. She's also really pleased that she won a silver award with this picture in the NZIPP Awards. She used a slow shutter speed and she panned with the sheep. And that was Kelly's commentary on that one. The next one is Paul Williams, and Paul sent me a slightly bigger dissertation on this one. And Paul won the New Zealand Landscape Silver for an A-grade landscape print. And his picture's called Winter Lake, and here it is. Paul says, this print follows a style that I like to see, which is that I use very sharp detail and I try to make the print look three-dimensional. The colour and the toning are critical, and the texture of the paper is important. In this image, there is no place for the eye to rest, but the composition is there and it's carefully considered. Did say, oh, by the way, he said the names on the plate since 2010 is me, Stuart Cloak, James Gibson, Mike White, and Sebastian Krebs. So Paul's chuffed to see his name on it as well. He also discovered that he previously won it in 2014. We didn't get to see Paul's talking to some other images that he sent, but there's a bit of loss in the communication, so we don't have those to talk to. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about how he processes it. He said that the raw file was quite flat. It was taken on 9th of June 2003 at the much-snapped Lake Rurutaniwha with a hoar frost and a thick mist mid-morning. The raw file doesn't look like much, but looks can be deceiving because the image had the right bones, it was sharp, well exposed, and had the elements to make good composition. I'll go through my process as it would have been if I knew what I was doing. The actual process is not linear, but is more iterative, taking different adjustments and then making a few test prints. Firstly, he checked exposure and focus. There's no point in doing all the work on a dud capture. He zoomed in and found although the trees were obscured by the mist, the leaves on the trees are still discernible, and that it's amazing how much detail the camera can capture. Slight straightening was necessary. He went to work with Lightroom sliders to emphasise the structure of the trees and all but eliminate the mist. He did not change the exposure. He said it's an important mantra to get the exposure right in the camera. You can play with the image then without hitting the boundaries. It took several attempts and some critical feedback until he got the crop right. The crop from the left was easy. He just needed to avoid distractions, and the hills in the background are also obscured by the mist, which simplified things. It would have made sense if we could have seen the pre-cropped image, so I'm not going to read the rest of that. This image was always intended to be a print, at least from the point of selecting it for post-processing. The saturation and toning looked to fall off a bit on the JPEG, but it's the print you have to work with afterwards. He used a slightly matted paper, a Canson Plantain, and that paper generally lightens and slightly desaturates the print. The blacks were very important. They were too dark for an image to look too dark and the image looks oversaturated, too light and the image looks washed out. So he spent a fair bit of time working on the blacks. The final print has an almost 3D look about it, which he likes to achieve. Neil Gordon was the judge, and he said, the words that come to mind for me with the print are exquisite and feathery. I like to think of the panoramic format works well with the view, and I'm glad that there is a gap to the right, as our Western tendency of reading images is from left to right, and that stops my eye from escaping the image on the right. If there is the focal point, for me it's the darker tree in the left of centre, because it's a slightly different and taller tree. I'd like to see all of the reflected trees and not have them cut off at the bottom, but I can also appreciate that there was an artistic choice by the photographer. There are quite a few natural, I assume, small black spots in the water which distracted me from enjoying the reflections, and I would recommend cloning those out. The print is matted with a tiny bit of a tree popping out from the left. Fix your print for matte. It was printed with a Canon Pro 1000 printer on Canson Plantain paper, and it was matted by Sebastian. And that is what Paul had to say about this picture.
Thank you, Ian. Last but not least, we're saving the best for last, is JK. And if you could come forward, please. Now, there are 3 awards earned by JK, so you want to run through the 3 certificates on your way to your presentation.
Hello? Yeah, good evening, everybody. Next. It's PowerPoint. Yeah, the PowerPoint that I get you. Okay. At the beginning of last year, I made 2 trips to the Southeast Asia country. And the first one, I went to Singapore, Japan, and Malaysia. And another one to North Vietnam. Okay, why While I was in Singapore, I had an opportunity to visit Malaysia and the capital, Kuala Lumpur, for a couple of days on the 18th to 20th March 2023. I joined a friend on a natural photographic expedition to find the little crawlies. I'm with my Canon R6 and my 100 macro lens, speed light, and a homemade diffuser. Next. This unique creature gets the name from an incredible camouflage in its natural habitat. It resembles dead leaf and is nearly invisible among them. When the mantis raises its arms, it's a sign that it senses danger and to protect itself. The images was taken on camera diffuse light. This unfortunate to have won the Champion Natural History projected image. Next. Yeah, before that, yeah, it's pretty much out of the camera, so little processing was done. Okay, next, next, yeah. This trip was on a 7-day North Vietnam photo trip from 16 to 23rd May 2023. I joined a group of photographers from Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia. We were picked up from the Hanoi airport. Then we went on, among lots of places that we went, include Hanoi Street Market and others. And this image, which has not won the final night award, was taken on the Quen Phu Chau village. And this guy is making the incense. So the sticks was manually chopped and make and shaped, and and the bamboo stick was then dipped into color solution in red, green, and yellow. Next. The color stick was then bundled up and left to dry in the sun by workers. To the Vietnamese, burning incense is the traditional ritual meant to build a bridge between the visible life of the present generation and the spiritual world of gods and past generation. Next. Then we visited soil source facility in Hun Yang province, about 60 kilometers from Hanoi. After soil and sticky rice are processed, the mixture is being put into big jars with water and salt and left to ferment under the sun. It takes about 1 to 2 months to make 1 jar of soybean paste. This image was taken at high point, high up in the scaffolding. And this shows the workers are processing the bean, and then when to dry, before it's mixed with the sticky rice. And water and salt and put in a jar for processing. Yeah, I'm fortunate to won an award, the champion photographic photojournalism print. And as the rules detect that this process cannot be altered, it has to be real. So it's pretty much out of the camera. And yeah, I don't have the metadata here to show. Yeah, very little processing in the Lightroom. Next. Then we went on to a tea plantation at sunrise, Long Cock Tea Hills. We went up to the hills by ferry up to the top of as a pillion riders by motorcycles, and because the place cannot be reached by a car. So this is the sunrise from the top of the hill, and you can see the foreground is a tea plantation. Next. And this shows the workers working in the field, and they are picking up. They're picking the leaves from the trees. Next. Again, we have to take by motorcycle up to the hill to this place where we see rice terraces. You know, you can see the paddy has grown in the background, and the foreground they are just preparing the ground for the planting of rice paddy. Next. Then we went to a village where Tao people live. The Tao people have their origin in China, and their migration to Vietnam began in the 12th and 13th centuries and lasted until the 20th century. The Tao, this is the traditional dress of the Tao people, especially the headdress, which is very striking, and triangular red turban. Next. At Mo Dae village, Mo Chang Thai, we photographed Hamon people processing corn. The corn cob was smoked dry in a bun and manually stripped off the kernels. Next. The Hamon people makes hon no wine at Ban Pho village. Sorry about the pronunciation. In Bak Ha in Sapa, in the northwest of Vietnam. With 60 kilometers of corn, Hamon people can make 20 liters of wine. The production starts with boiled corn kernels that are fermented with spring water and yeast, usually made with various herbs and plants. It is transferred to the distiller on the left. Okay, see on the left is a distiller where the wine was distilled and left to make wine. The white bowls in front, in the foreground, are what they call hon mi is. You see when I was taking the image, you see the light. This only light that is present there was from her left-hand side, and whereas the distiller is on her right-hand side. And this is the image that I have won the Champion A grade photojournalism projected image. And again, because of the rule, nothing is altered. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I said you would have a variety show, and I think you would have to agree that is what you've got. You've got a variety of places, you've got a variety of techniques from in-camera movement to no camera movement. You've got Photoshop layers and combinations of images. You've got local and overseas places, huge variety of post-production techniques. But I will let you into one little thing for those of you who are just beginning on your photography journey. I believe quite firmly that all of the winners tonight, there was a time when they couldn't use a camera and couldn't do any post-processing, and they've made the learning steps to do so. So that if you're a little bit overwhelmed by some of the things you've seen tonight, fear not, persevere, and you'll get there. I would like now you all to join with me and with a round of applause to thank the speakers who have presented tonight.
Well, I'd like to ask for another round of applause to Nelson for a fantastic job of putting that all together. Sometimes when you have little jobs to get organised, it takes a bit of a prod and a reminder and stuff. Nelson came up to me last year and said, "Do you want me to do that opening night again?" "Yes, please, Nelson." And I rang him about 2 or 3 weeks ago and said, "Did I ask you to?" And he said, "No, but I'm going to do it anyway, and it's all sorted." And he turns up and it's done, so it's just fantastic from my point of view. So well done, Nelson. Thank you much. I really appreciate it. And yes, please, next year it'd be good. Just a couple more things before we go, primarily about next week. As I said, the 7 p.m. session is, I can't remember what we're calling it, beginners and new members, it's like equivalent of C grade, but basically Heidi wants to make this a doing session, and she wants to have anybody who wants to get involved in getting practical hands-on things. She wants to toy with textures next week. So the instructions I had, Heidi was going to pass them on herself, but she got held up, unfortunately. But she said, bring your camera and bring your phone. So we're going to be experimenting with textures, and we're going to go out and going to use the torches on your phone to emphasize some textures, and we're going to be making images along those lines. So as I said, a little bit different from how we do things. It's going to be a practical hands-on session for the new photographers group for this year, starting next week. So get involved. At 8 o'clock, we'll have Chris Saunders, fingers and toes crossed, beaming in via Zoom from Perth. Chris was a presenter at the NZIPP conference last year and was really good, super appreciated it, and he seems like an awesome guy, and I'm really looking forward to that, with our fingers and toes crossed that it's all going to happen. Yeah, he's an excellent guy to talk to. I think he's a medical professional as well, isn't it? Something else like that that's pretty high powered. He might be, but he's not a professional photographer anyway. He's just really, really good. So something to really look forward to. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So just stand by for details on that, but that we're expecting a Zoom presentation at the 8 o'clock session next week. So just leave that now to say thank you to everybody that made this happen. Up in the booth, up the back there, Gordon and Andrew's still there, I think. So well done, guys. Thanks for that. Alistair for projection. Once again for Nelson for an awesome job of that, and to Alistair for the pizzas. Thanks for coming. I hope you had a good night, and welcome back.